What's going on, guys? Brian Stevens here with the National Real Estate Post, mortgage shots, and all that good stuff. Got a lot to talk about today. We are back. We are back in action with Streamlabs once again. We'll see how this whole thing kind of works out with us. Streamlabs gives us the opportunity to go ahead and actually produce our Facebook Lives, our YouTube Lives if you're watching us there. If you're watching us on Twitter, that could also be the place, amongst other places. It's really actually kind of a cool, not terribly complicated platform, but whenever you're doing videos, what happens is that when you can take images, it's going to further your narrative, so to speak. So that's kind of what we're doing here. So we got a lot of stuff to cover today. What we're going to be talking about is going to be multifaceted. By and large, what we're going to talk about is our credit card debt, the problems associated with that, and the solutions. Wherever there's a conflict, there's a resolution. The solution to that. We're also going to be talking about self-employed folks to a lesser extent. But anyways, anybody who's watching this, do me a favor, chat in. What's up, Kayleen? And where you guys are from, Kayleen? It's nice to see you here. Very, very cool. For anybody else who's watching this right now, like I said, just chime in. Let me know who you are and where you are watching from. It's just makes this way more interesting than having this emotionless camera lens staring back at me, not participating whatsoever with my live stream. You know, that's actually kind of an interesting point. If you've ever thought about shooting videos or you are shooting videos, Olympia, Washington, right on. Olympia, Washington. After the beer. Remember the beer from the 70s? That's awesome. Working on your buyer's guide. Super cool. We talked about this before, but you know, when you're doing a video, you have like this non-emotional, omnipotent type of lens staring back at you, and it doesn't participate in the conversation. So when you have an emotional up or a down, it doesn't kind of play that volley that goes back and forth. So what you have to do is you simply have to pretend it exists. And that will distinguish between a decent video and a video that you're going to click off in 2 seconds. The brewery is not here anymore. Yeah, that Olympia beer was like from the 1970s. Maybe the 80s, I'm not sure. But you get the idea. Okay, so a couple of things that I want to share with you guys. Well, first off, let's just start here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to start down here. Self-employed folks, a couple of things to consider here. Right now, as a loan officer or as a real estate agent, you have to understand that being a self-employed person is still a wildly underrepresented segment in the housing industry. Okay, we need to get in front of more self-employed folks, small businesses in our community. And there's a couple of things, and I'm going to share you some stats that I think should help you out or try to compel you into working more with self-employed folks. The first one is a self-employed borrower strategically is like a bonus, okay? Like if you play a video game and you grab something and you get it and like, oh, now you grab this one, it's the same thing. It's like, oh, but you get it times 2. It's a bonus. Your self-employed folks actually come with a better opportunity for you, the loan agent or the real estate agent, in the long run. What do I mean by that? Okay, so if I'm going to a client, they have their sphere of influence, which is fundamentally different than my sphere of influence. Even if we live in the same community, we might have some overlapping, but you've got your goons and I've got my goons. Now, I just did a presentation, and there's a number of different ways that you could break this whole thing down, but it goes something like this. You have, on average, about 25 people who you can compel to do something if you needed them to do it. These are going to be your closest 25. I could call 25 people and say, hey, I need you to forward my show. This really helps me out. I need you to do this today. And I could get 25 people who would say yes, and they would certainly go ahead and do that. At 26, maybe not. But that's the thinking. If you needed somebody to share a message to their sphere of influence, you probably have about 25 people who are on that short list. People who you'd call and share some of your most intimate secrets with, some more than others. But that type of thing. In our personal ecosystem, it's anywhere between 600 to 900 people. And again, my presentations, if you come on Thursdays when I do these and you go to the National Real Estate Post and go ahead and sign up for them, I'll give you all the stats on that. But it's basically 600 to 900 people. Strangely, people with more common names are more difficult to really identify. It's like, okay, so for instance, I probably know 50 Michaels, but I could probably only name 4 or 5 off the top of my head. But if somebody said that name, it's like, yeah, I know that dude. Oh, yeah, I know that dude too. That type of thing. Okay, so if we can compel 10 people into doing something, and that person is an advocate, if that person is an advocate of ours, we could add them to that short list of people who are going to share our message if and when we ask them to do so. That's great because they're bringing their 25 with them. But here's the thing. With self-employed people, small business owners in our community, they don't just come with the people that they know and they hang out with. That would be their coworkers, their family, their friends, their neighbors, their, softball coaches, shit like that. But they also come with that separate ecosystem that's called their small business. So a small business owner is technically drawing from 2 fundamentally different groups, where most of us have 1 group that we're drawing from, not 2. I'm going to just give you this little anecdotal piece. I went to a friend's retirement party, and it was interesting because the retirement party had 3 groups. It had like a few people from their work, and it was a 9-to-5 bureaucratic type of job. People who they lived around, and then people who was their sphere of friends. And that's kind of how the whole thing goes. And they all kind of ran about the same size. But you see, when you have somebody who's running a small business, that person's running into hundreds, sometimes thousands of people per day. You have your nail salon. Like I said, it's your B2B approach to stuff. You have your Pilates instructor, your pet groomer, your coffee shop, your lunch place, your banks are even fantastic for shit like this. But they come with that separate. They come with that separate database. So when you work with self-employed people, you then, after that transaction closes, get an opportunity to work with them. Plus, you have an opportunity to get the bonus round with them and ask them if you can go ahead and try to access the database from the small business that they operate. And the great thing about small businesses right now is, great, this is really, it's not a shitty thing to say, but the thing about small businesses right now is if they're still in existence, they're probably doing a pretty good job. We've seen that up here in Northern California. Like in San Francisco, 35% of all small businesses have gone under. Now, San Francisco is monumentally catastrophic and effing everything up right now. So that kind of stands to reason. But when you're looking at a third of all businesses being small businesses being scuttled, that's pretty remarkable. A lot of our communities post-COVID have gone through that trial by fire approach to see if they can keep their doors open. So the ones that are still around are pretty damn good at what they do and probably have a loyal following. And for a loan officer or a real estate agent, understand, this bodes well for you. Because if you can infiltrate and access that database of that small business, you get the database from the individual business owner, and then you potentially get access to the database, which is everybody who goes through that front door every day. And I've said it a million times over. People who buy coffee like to live inside houses. They don't want to live under the freeway. So self-employed people are wildly, wildly important to what we're doing, and yet they're massively underrepresented. I've done a number of different presentations on this before. Your average self-employed person makes about twice as much money as your average W-2 employee in the same field at the same age with the same number of years experience. They're just going to make more money. We don't have your loans that you otherwise would get with self-employed folks, but that's the thinking there. So as we go through this, there's a couple of things to consider. For self-employed workers, their employment situation, we've got 50% are sole proprietors of the business, which this is really great information for us. You have somebody who's a sole proprietor of a business. That means you don't need to compel a board. You need to compel an individual to get in your corner so you can start swapping databases and increasing opportunities for both your personal business as a realtor or lender and the business of the small business that we're talking about. Freelance is kind of an interesting one because it doesn't really fall into the prototypical self-employed person, but freelance workers also are constantly hopscotching around. That's an interesting one. And to let you know here, there's the cool thing about freelancers is they generally are making more money than anybody right now. We're talking about our programmers, our IT guys, stuff like that. They do extremely well, but they don't have traditional income, do they? Oftentimes they're 1099 employees, and right now you can find 1099 loan products that exist out there that are wildly aggressive in terms of underwriting and rate. So freelancers up into the really the non-QM revolution of a couple of years ago didn't have any options on the table to buy a house. That's a lot of pent-up energy, and there's a shit ton of pent-up money there. And now these loans are readily available with our non-QM borrowers like Oaktree, and you can go ahead and get a 1099, and you can go ahead and get that file underwritten in a very, very similar fashion to what you would otherwise have with a W-2. Again, a product that didn't exist even a couple of years ago. And the guys over at Oaktree will help you out with this. They have account reps that will walk you through all the loan programs as a realtor or lender. All you have to do is go to Oaktree, go to the National Real Estate Post site and click on it and go reach out to those guys. Business owners with other employees. Okay, this is actually kind of a cool one too, 27%. So that means we've got, again, we are still going to the decision maker who's going to be the sole proprietor of a business, but some of these sole proprietors have other employees that are working under them. They're not working as in partnership. That's great depending on what the business is, because if you have a highly skilled type of business that your sole proprietor is running, you could actually find folks that are working for that small business owner who could then also qualify for a mortgage themselves. In fact, the truth be told, when you're dealing with some of these larger small businesses in your community, perhaps it's not even the owner of the shop who you're trying to get financing for in a purchase or a refinance. Maybe that's a commercial situation which you should have an option on the table for, but perhaps what you're trying to do is get that person to compel their employees to actually buy a house. Now, if you think about this for a second, hey guys, just work with me on the logic behind this. If I'm going to a small business owner who doesn't need a loan or a house from me as a real estate agent or a lender, then I might ask myself, why the hell am I talking to that person? They don't want shit that I'm selling, so I'm going to go find somebody who wants to buy what I'm selling, right? I mean, as a lender or realtor, let's go to greener pastures somewhere else. I don't need to go to Bob, the small business owner with 9 employees. Well, hold on a second. I know Bob. I've got an in with Bob because I buy some of Bob's stuff, right? Or whatever it is. Whatever widget Bob is selling, I participate with that. But I also know that Bob has a number of different employees who are well paid. Well-paid employees are paid well because of longevity. These aren't transient type of positions. If somebody's working in a bar, a bartender, by and large, is a short-term transient type of position. If somebody's working as a food server, I'm not talking about everybody, but by and large, it's a transient short-term type of position. If somebody is working as an electrician, perhaps, and they've been with the company for 15 years, or in the trades, or a 10 knocker, an HVAC guy or something like that, you could have somebody who's paid very well, and as a consequence of being paid well, part of what they're getting is that loyalty and that longer term employment, which is exactly what you want as a lender or a real estate agent. Now, I'm going to go to the business owner, work with me on this. I'm going to go to them and say, hey, Bob, how you doing here? I'm Brian Stevens. I work with ABC Mortgage. I can help you out with your financing. I got commercial options on the table for you. Buying a house is a great thing. And Bob's going to say, thanks, Brian. I already own a house. Again, paraphrasing, this is all going to be different for you. Okay, Bob, but I noticed that you've got 9 trucks out here. You have 9 of these metal box electricians type of trucks, and I'm assuming those things go out every day. Because those trucks don't pay themselves off or pay themselves back unless they're on the road going to people's houses. We know that to be true. So I'm assuming if you have 8 trucks, Bob, that means you have 8 trucks that are going out every day on jobs, bids, contracts, whatever the case is. Yeah, that's the idea, Brian. Okay, say, you're fucking stupid, Bob. No, we don't say that, but the idea is well, Bob, hey, listen, this might work out well for you. Let's think about this for a second. We know, statistically speaking, and we can get all the numbers, that when somebody plants roots and buys a house in a community, they have a tendency to stay in that community for 14 years longer, 27% longer their entire life. So if you have employees that are doing a great job for you and are currently renting, if you encourage them to buy a house, you, one, are helping their financial situation, and I'm assuming you care about these people because you want them to stay with your business. So you're improving their financial situation. That's what we do for people we care about. And number 2, it helps your business as well because you have somebody who's now much more entrenched in the community. That will help their work ethic, generally will help their work ethic, and it will have them staying on with your business for a longer period of time. Versus somebody who's renting and maybe the landlord kicks them out of the place and they're looking for a different, now all of a sudden our sister-in-law's community out there in Tucumcari, Texas sounds like a pretty good option because they need electricians out there as well. So when we have these larger type of businesses, it does kind of make sense to say, hey, hold on. Have a vested interest in the outcome of your employees. If they plant roots in our community, your company is going to do better as a result of it. So that's a great self-employed angle too. So when we start looking at these things and we say, okay, we have 27% of all small business owners that they have other employees working for them, that is great information for a real estate agent or a loan officer to take with them and use this as part of your arsenal when you're having a conversation and invoking your greatest of sales skills, which is compelling people to do things that are in their best interest. Independent contractors, 68%, participate in an internet platform or an app, 27%. That's going to be the geographical locations. You're probably like Charlotte, Austin, Seattle, San Francisco, that type of stuff. Working through an agency, no good. Others, let's just say others, no good either. But when we look at these sole proprietors, freelancers, business owners with other employees, independent contractors, all of these are great options, and these are huge numbers that are all in play right now for people who are looking at buying a house. And you as a lender or realtor need to keep this in mind. I like this graph a lot. I think this one's pretty cool. Self-employed, important reasons for becoming self-employed. I want to tell you how I looked at this thing. Oh shoot, hold on. Let me see if I can pull this up a little bit. I can't. Okay, there. That's better. Okay, so you can see it at the bottom now. All right, 66% said, I like being my own boss. All right. Have you ever heard anybody at the DMV saying, I like taking orders from middle management all day long? Nope, they like being their own boss, 66%. So we're going to say if you like being your own boss, you're probably happy. Number two at 54%, I can work a flexible schedule and hours. Like that. Some people see it a detriment, but they like this. The third one is I can work where I want to, 48%. 45% say the opportunity to earn more money. 32% say they're an entrepreneur. 15% say there's tax advantages. And then once we get down there, it all turns to crap, doesn't it? I lost my job. It allows me to transition into retirement. And I was unable to find suitable employment. Bad, bad, bad. Okay? But here's the thing that I see. When we look from that 15% as there's tax advantages all the way over to the left, look at all the opportunity. What you would have to deduce from this is people who are self-employed are more or less happy. They like what they're doing. And I'm telling you right now, if you want to have happy clients, find people who like what they do for a living. Self-employed people are going out on a limb. They're doing this shit because they want to. You know, they're doing it not because it's easy, but because it's hard. Because they like it. Because it's their passion. They're happier people. These are people who you're going to find who are going to be huger advocates of you. Because what you're doing is you're acting in the capacity as a self-employed person as well. So when you do a great job in your profession, listen, if you're self-employed, have you ever noticed this as a realtor or lender? It's like you see somebody else who's got a small business and they're running it, and you see that they're doing a good job, a professional job, and you know they're running a small operation. You ever look at them and just say, that person's got their shit together? Do you ever think that? Because I do all the time. So other self-employed people that you're working with whose business you should start to covet, the underrepresented ones out there, when you do a great job with what you're doing, they're going to see that in you, and they're going to have a higher understanding of what you're doing and the work that goes into truly being a professional. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with forming bonds of camaraderie. Oh, you run a small business. All right, so you're running in California, you're running a smog check shop. You're running whatever it is. Yeah, I run a small business as well. Oh, God, what are you doing for your advertising? What are you doing for this? How are you getting people in the front door? What's going on with your taxes? State taxes, California, horrible. You can form those bonds of camaraderie, and when in a world of parity, people work with who they know, like, and trust. So just keep in mind, a self-employed person you'll probably oftentimes have more in common with as well. Okay, one more here. Change of financial situation due to the pandemic. Self-employed people, 34% of them said that they ran into a financial hardship. Let's see here, I have it here. 34% said their financial hardship worsened. 50% said it stayed the same. 15% say it actually improved. Which is, okay, well, 22% who were, state employees or federal employees, they said there was some hardship. The vast majority said stayed the same or it improved. Now, you can look at that 34% for self-employed people and see that as well. They got hit during the shutdown from COVID, and the answer would be yes. But these are also people who are now hungrier to go ahead and get everything straightened out. Again, all great tools when you're coming to try to deal with sales and something. So what do you guys think about that? Yay or nay? Does that help you with the idea of working with more self-employed folks out there? Because it does me. Again, they make more money. You have more in common with them. They come with multiple databases that you can go ahead and infiltrate. And here's the thing: if you're good with a small business, a local small business, think about this. Like, even your best of referral partners are not going to be referring you on a daily basis. They're just not going to do it. But if you're working, depending on in what capacity you're working with a small business, if they're opening their doors and they're funneling traffic through, that's an opportunity with every client to hear your message. Are they going to hear it? No. But there's an opportunity to hear it on a daily basis. A daily basis. Something to consider there. Okay. Let's try this one on for size here. Honestly, I don't want to go into this one right now. I'm going to go into something a little bit different here. Okay. Now, this one's a little shocking. Did you hear that Fitch is placing the government-sponsored enterprises, that would be Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, on a rating watch of negative? Meaning they have not been downgraded from their AAA rating, but they are put on notice of being downgraded into a AA rating. I find this absolutely remarkable. The reason is quite simple. First of all, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac over the past 2 decades have been the most lucrative company in the history of the world. That is unarguable. They've made more money. They pass more trillions of dollars than any energy company, any technology firm, any industrial company that you have out there. Larger than most countries in the world is how much money they're dealing with. The most lucrative, profitable company ever. Of course, they're in, conservatorship. That's another longer conversation, but they're about to be downgraded. And I thought, boy, ain't this crazy. Why would they be downgraded? As a government-sponsored enterprises, the GSEs, Fannie and Freddie benefit from the implicit government support. Fannie and Freddie's long-term IDRs and GSRs are directly linked to the United States sovereign long-term IDRs based on Fitch's view of the United States government's direct financial support of the 2 GSEs. It's interesting. So what they're saying is it's kind of twofold how I'm reading this. One, they're saying, well, right now, because of our debt ceiling crisis that we're running across right now, Fitch is coming out and saying, well, since Fannie and Freddie are dependent upon the feds to go ahead and get their debt ceiling crisis figured out, if we're looking at downgrading the United States federal government, then by extension, we should be looking at downgrading Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And the only thing that stands to happen there is that could possibly make rates more expensive and loans more scarce as we are going forward. But the other thing is, the other concern here is, as I'm looking at this, is it saying, well, hold on a second here. The safest place for these two, even though we're looking at downgrading the GSEs as an extension of the federal government and the shaky ground that they find themselves in on, the safest place for the GSEs to be is going to be under conservatorship. In other words, if they were to get out of conservatorship and we look at the state of housing right now and the potential for another problem that certainly wouldn't be as bad as 2008, but could possibly see an uptick in foreclosures, which could test the coffers of the GSEs. And because right now they are, oh God, what's the word I'm looking for? I just lost my train of thought. Because they are undercapitalized, because as they currently stand being undercapitalized by design from the federal government, it could leave Fannie and Freddie exposed in the event that we saw any significant uptick in foreclosures. In short, what Fitch came out to say right now is if you are investing in Fannie, or if you're looking at Fannie as a sound investment, or the solvency of the government-sponsored enterprises right now, they are both damned if they do and damned if they don't. Conservatorship leaves them dependent upon the United States federal government, who right now seems to be on shaky ground with their debt ceiling crisis that we have yet to fully resolve. Yet to release them from such an obligation, such a situation right now, could even stress them further than what they're currently at. And it's not lost on me that all of this stuff it seemingly is by design. And one more, I don't know if it's a big one, but one more that I want you guys to consider right now is, did you see that UBS is winding down the United States trading unit and mortgages? They're going to retain their financing. This is kind of a trip, and I'm still trying to wrap my mind around this. But Swiss Bank UBS Plans to wind down a business. It's wind down a business in the United States mortgage unit that focuses on to be announced TBA's trading. This was announced by Bloomberg last week. The decision is part of UBS's strategy to focus more on financing mortgage originators, the outlet says, citing an anonymous source discussing non-public information who was asked to remain unidentified. We are fully committed to our lending business, which supports independent mortgage originators, UBS spokesperson Erica Chase told Bloomberg. The number of positions affected by this closure is unclear. However, the unit's managing director, Michael Sudnow, will be leaving, according to Bloomberg. So, again, this is just yet another one of the larger shakeups that we're finding in the mortgage space right now. And there was I think there's a conference of warehouse lenders over on the East Coast a couple of weeks ago. And what they were talking about, what was being bantered back and forth, was that upwards of 50% of all mortgage companies are going to be merged with or absorbed by other companies going forward. And boy, that would be something to see, wouldn't it? All right, guys. Hey, listen, just a short one today. Got to get back in the groove of things, but we're going to be bringing some great information to you guys as we go forward. Remember, Thursday, we're going to be doing our webinar series. We got some good stuff coming up, so make sure you go to the National Real Estate Post. You can click this QR code right over here, and we look forward to seeing